Twbercwlosis and welcome to Cardiff University's Because of You Festival. My name's Professor Colin Reardon, President and Vice-Chancellor of Cardiff University. This week's all about celebrating the impact that you make, donors, cyffredinol members, fundraisers and runners, volunteers, ambassadors and mentors. Those of you who donated in memory of your loved ones, and those of you who've pledged to give us a gift in your will. Your support to help us continue excellent learning and world-class research is now more important than ever. I know our students and researchers are incredibly grateful. I hope you enjoy the festival and that what you remember is a resounding thank you for all you helped to achieve.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hannah Sterrett. I'm the Alumni and Supporter Engagement Officer from the Development and Alumni Relations Department at Cardiff University, and I am delighted to be able to welcome you this afternoon to our lunchtime talk with fellow Cardiff alumna and current PhD student Hannah Thomas, who graduated with a BSc in 2019. And today's talk title is Tackling TB and Unlocking a Universal Cure. I'd like to start by welcoming Hannah. Hello, and
Hello.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi.
So, should we start with a few questions? I would love to get to know you a bit more and also more about your research. So, can you tell us what brought you to Cardiff to study in the first place?
So I'm Hannah, and home for me is Swansea. So Cardiff was like a super convenient location for me. It was an hour from home, not too far. And that's when I was looking to start my undergraduate degree. I was like an hour on the train, you know. It's a lovely city as well. I'd visited a lot when I was a teenager, and I knew, really friendly. It's a city, but it's not as busy as anywhere like London or any of the bigger cities like that. Also, when I was looking at different courses, obviously Cardiff had an excellent reputation for its research, as it still does. But at the time, it was when I was comparing different universities, it came up pretty top for me. And I think location was just the winner because it's just such a nice city, and I just love it here. Another thing about Cardiff was that one of my hobbies is that I'm quite musical, and Cardiff offers quite a lot of different choirs and different opportunities for that as well. So alongside my degree, I knew there would be other things that I could do in my spare time pre-COVID, But yeah, Cardiff is great. I love it.
And what sort of societies were you a part of, just out of interest?
I had a brief stint in kickboxing, but that was just for a year, and we left it there. But I did join the university choir, and I'm part of the BBC National Chorus of Wales as well, which is still going throughout COVID. We're still doing a lot of like virtual things, and I really enjoy that. So I'm really glad that that was something I could get involved with when I started in Cardiff as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, it's always good to have kind of added value, isn't it? And do something different, as well as contrasting to what you're doing, studying at university. So brilliant. Yeah. And then what made you decide to stay and do your PhD here?
My undergraduate degree was in biochemistry, and I graduated with a 2-1 in 2019. And part of my undergraduate degree is that I did a placement in one of the labs in the Heath Hospital, and I just loved it there. I got on with the team really well, and it really sparked an interest for immunology, which we'd done a little bit of in uni. But that placement year really just opened my eyes to research, and I really enjoyed. So that really motivated me to want to stay in Cardiff. And I knew the area really well. The uni is obviously really supportive. I knew how to use all the resources, and it was just good old familiarity as well,
I'm sure it made such a difference after you come back from your placement year, going into final year, saying, I know what I want to do now. And
yeah, that was so nice as well. A lot of my course mates were sort of like, do I enjoy research? Do I want to go into the lab? Do I want to work in industry or the charity sector? There's so many different directions you can go in science. But thanks to my placement and the opportunity I had, I sort of knew that I enjoyed it. And it wasn't such a daunting idea then, going headfirst into a postgraduate degree.
So you kind of transitioned quite well from undergraduate to doctorate, or was it still kind of a big step up for you?
It was a big step, but the fact that I had done my placement in the lab where I'm doing my PhD now, sort of I'd already had the groundwork for training. I knew a couple of people in the lab as well. So it wasn't such a scary step because I knew my way around a little bit. But definitely when you have all of the inductions for postgraduates and, you're going to be here another few years. And one of the exciting things about postgraduate research is that it's frontline scientific research. No one else has done it before. So even though you've definitely got people in your team to support you and who have done similar things to you, it's all new, and that's like the daunting bit. But it's exciting. It's part of why I like science.
Fantastic. So what does your research cover?
So the building that I work in the Heath is infection and immunity. So I mean, COVID this year has definitely educated people a bit more on the immune system and how it's your body's natural defense against pathogenic infections and all sorts like that. And our lab specifically focuses on T cells, which can identify certain pathogens like viruses or bacteria, that sort of stuff. And the certain type of T cell that we work with, they can identify and kill infected cells directly. So what my project aims to do is, the context of my project is tuberculosis, which is caused by a bacteria called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. TB causes respiratory problems in the lungs, and it can affect children as well. We do have, I imagine you and a lot of people in the UK, me included, have had the BCG vaccine, which is it's a preventative vaccine treatment for TB, and it's a standard part of immunization programs in over like 150 countries or something. But some studies have shown that it does have a limited efficacy, so there's definitely room for improvement in treatments. And obviously, I mean, it's not tuberculosis isn't such a big problem in the UK, but a lot of countries it's still, there's still an epidemic going on. Lots of people are dying from it. There's the World Health Organization report, I can't remember the statistics now, but it's still a massive crisis going on. And there's also a tuberculosis HIV joint epidemic, because they affect each other and one makes you more susceptible to the other. So it's definitely an area of science that needs a lot more research into it, especially treatments. So what my project aims to do is to find a T cell that can recognize and react to the tuberculosis infection and it's essentially kill any infected cells. Another really interesting thing about T cells that our lab utilizes in a lot of different contexts is that T cells have the ability to be cross-reactive, and they can react to more than one type of pathogenic infection. So what I want to do is find a T cell that reacts to tuberculosis, but I also want to work with a couple of other types of bacteria, such as Salmonella, Staphylococcus, also Klebsiella maybe, and they all cause a range of different diseases and symptoms. But ideally, if I can find a T cell that can react to all these different bacterial infections, it's the really early starting phases of research, before things go to like animal studies, clinical trials. The research that we do in the lab is very first stage, and it's the exciting stuff where you find like this could have the potential for something massive, but obviously you've got to go through all the health and safety protocols and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's my aim, to find a T cell that can react to tuberculosis and kill it, and hopefully a couple of other bacterial infections as well. And there are different types of T cells, and the type that we work with, or the type that I'm looking for, would be able to be used across the population. So it wouldn't be restricted to certain types of like Caucasians or Asians. Like the immune system has different markers. Yeah. And the T cell that I'd love to find would be able to be used as like a universal therapeutic for bacterial infections. And even just saying that is so like out there, like that's mad. But like I say, it's the first stages, and that's like my long-term goal. Hopefully, I mean, my postdoctorate, my PhD project is a couple of years, but I mean, this research will go on for years after that as well, whether that's me or someone after me. It's really exciting. So yeah.
It must be fantastic just to kind of get so close to the research and actually learn so much more about why things happen, or why, the whole process is absolutely fascinating.
And especially like why things don't work. That's another thing that's also really exciting.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you've covered a lot about what you have learned so far in your PhD, but is there anything else that you haven't quite covered just yet that would be really interesting for our listeners to learn about?
Well, obviously I'm learning a lot of like hands-on science, a lot of different techniques, things like molecular cloning, how to use lentivirus, stuff like that. But and more broad things that I've learned in my project is things like how to present academic data to like we have regular lab meetings, we have departmental meetings, and all of the PhD students, they get an opportunity every year to present how their project's going. And I've just started my second year now, so I've done 2 of these presentations, and my gosh, they're daunting because obviously you're presenting to a lot of experts in the field, but it's a really good opportunity, and it builds your confidence as well. What else have I done? Oh, one thing I've done is I've had the opportunity through my PhD to sort of lecture first year medics for one of their courseworks. It's called the SSC scheme, I think.
Oh yeah.
And I had the opportunity to teach, I think it was 12 or 13 or so, first year medic students who didn't really know much about the immune system at all. And it was really, it was a really new experience getting to teach, because I've never done that before. And I found that quite enjoyable, scary, but enjoyable. You know, also going way back to basics and starting from the bottom, and you know, going from the broad sense of immunology, focusing down on like the very specific areas that we work in, and then you can show them like, this is the data, this is the lab that we work in, these are the kind of things that we do day to day. Yeah, that was a really exciting opportunity that I enjoyed, and I think they've got their assessments coming up in a few weeks, so I'm still in contact with them, and that's really nice.
Oh, fantastic. So what is it like working for the Sewell lab?
Oh, the CUL lab is great. Honestly, I've got so many friends there, and it's so supportive, especially with this COVID-19 pandemic. You know, a lot of us were you know, unable to get into the lab for a while, and we had to utilize our time elsewhere, whether it was reading or writing papers, you know, that sort of thing. But you know, we still had regular contact, and I've got so many friends, like fellow students and some of the postdocs as well. Yeah, no, I feel really supported. I've got Andrew Sewell is our PI, our main supervisor, but then my co-supervisor is Gary Dalton, and he's great as well. I see him like every week to discuss data, plan for the next week. It's really enjoyable. And also our lab works on a range of different things. Like I work on bacteria, but a good couple of people in the lab work on different types of cancers, like AMLs or breast cancer, that sort of thing. And also really exciting, I don't do it myself, but a couple of people in our lab are also working on some COVID studies as well. So that's exciting. It's really, it's a good feeling to know that like you're part of a lab that's doing frontline research, you know, stuff that's relevant. So is TB obviously, but COVID especially at the moment, you know, knowing that you've got the resources, and some of my colleagues are like, you know, hopefully working to find something helpful, useful in these weird times, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, something that strikes me is how collaborative labs are as well. So even though,
Oh, definitely,
you know, if you're not working on something that is directly related, or, you know, to me, I wouldn't see that as directly related, actually, there are so many crossovers.
That's another thing about scientific research, is the collaboration. That's a really good skill that you learn as a PhD student, but then, you know, it goes on when you're a postdoc or if you're a professor or whatever. So for my project with bacteria, we're currently collaborating and working with the support of Dr. Brad Spiller. I think he's a microbiologist in the Heath Hospital, and he's got a little team, and they specialize in bacterial culture. So collaborating with him has been a big help as well so far in my project. It's nice to be able to ask people from different fields for their takes on things, because they might look at something completely different and, you know, suggest something that you would never have thought of. And that's a really good thing about science, you know, being part of a supportive team where you can all just talk to each other and collaborate, you know.
So have all the senior academics been really supportive of your academic journey, and all of your fellow PhD researchers as well?
Oh, definitely. So there's another girl in our lab who started at the same time as me, and we're really good friends. Like, you know, we're going through the same journey at the same time together. We've got all our assessments at the same time. Especially throughout COVID as well. The more senior members of staff in the department as well, they were the School of Medicine, they were having regular Q&As and like that sort of thing. The PGR department for postgraduate research as well, they had Q&As. I know it didn't affect me too much because I was, you know, this time last year I was only in my first year, but a lot of the third years and final years, they had a lot of concerns about their submissions and their vivas, and I think, you know, the university handled, as far as I'm aware, handled that pretty well. You know, they were really supportive and on hand if you needed anything.
You mentioned before, you know, that you had no access to your labs for a few months during the beginning of COVID. I assume you're back in your labs now, and how has that affected the process? And are you back to normal, I suppose, or, well,
yeah,
research hasn't stopped?
No. Well, I started my PhD January 2020, so I had, you know, between January and March, starting out as you normally would, all the training, all the enrollment, and then obviously this pandemic hit and no one really knew what to do. So obviously a lot of us, the university had to do what it had to do for our health. And, it said staff, students can't come in until we, put in the measures that we need to make the university safe and the lab spaces safe for you to work in, with PPE and social distancing, one-way systems, all these sorts of things. So, a lot of us we weren't able to access the labs at first. The postdocs who are obviously funded by charities or industries, they were in there were different phases of people going back. But I've been back since September now, so I had about 5 or 6 months at the lab. But we were encouraged to utilize that time, whether it was online training or reading around our topics. Some labs include, like every lab did it differently, but I know our lab, we were encouraged to sort of read up on the broader field of immunology, because we're very specialist. There's obviously a lot of stuff that we don't think about, very often. And when it comes up to writing papers or things, you need to like scratch up your knowledge a bit sometimes. So we were encouraged to read up around our topic, do a bit of writing as well. That's always good practice. But the research didn't stop. Like, some of the people who had gone back in earlier phases, they'd started things like the COVID project that we're working on. And yeah, no, it was a very surreal experience, half of the lab being in, half of them not, but everyone was just really looking forward to being able to getting back to doing what we love doing. We're not used to working from home. It's not something that we really do a lot. We're very lab based.
And how is your PhD funded?
My PhD project, when I applied, actually, it's fully funded by the Mills Legacy Fund, which was left in somebody's will. And it's fully funded my PhD project for 3.5 years. So I'm so grateful for that. It's given me the opportunity that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
And what are your career aspirations after you gain your doctorate? Obviously, we're thinking long term here.
Well, finish the PhD is job number one, but I think I'm not 100% sure, but like probably, I love the research that I do, and hopefully, maybe I'd be able to like move on to a postdoctoral job position and hopefully be able to continue my research. I know that's happened with some people in our lab and other labs. People are able to continue working on their projects and their interests once they finish their studentship then. And it would be good to be able to see it through if,
That's fantastic. Is that something that you would be able to do in Cardiff, or would you need to move elsewhere or travel elsewhere to pursue research?
I don't see a reason why I couldn't stay in Cardiff. I love the city. I'm keen to stay. Like I said, it's not far from home for me. I know it really well. I know the team. It does, at the end of the day, depend on funding, what sort of job positions would be available when Andy, our principal investigator, when the time comes, what's available. Another part of my project is that there's a lab in Bristol with another one of my co-supervisors, and they have the lab space and the means to work with live tuberculosis, as in the bacteria in their labs. So that's another form of collaboration. So maybe there would be a link there for even during my project, just to go there for a few weeks, come back, and it's just another example of how collaboration between different unis is so important for research. So maybe there'd be opportunities there as well, but I'd love to stay in Cardiff if the opportunity was there at the time.
It's great to see the collaboration, because actually that's something I'm aware of in loads of different projects that I wouldn't necessarily think, oh, if it's Cardiff, it's Cardiff. But actually,
No, it's not.
Collaboration means that you can share ideas, and it isn't just the siloed nature of some things. But no, it's lovely to hear that.
Yeah, and I know, when you work in industry company, you sign a lot of contracts. You're obliged to that specific company. But with academic research, collaboration is really encouraged, because you're all working towards the greater goal of improving, treatments for a disease, or finding a cure for this or that.
So what would you say to anyone watching this who might have left a gift in their will to support research, or who might be considering including Cardiff in their will?
I can't describe how much difference it can make. One, to the scientific field of research, even you might think, oh, one researcher, like, what are they going to do? But they can do a lot, they can publish a really important paper that can spark so many other studies off it, And for me personally, like, I wouldn't be doing this project. I wouldn't have this opportunity if it wasn't for the generous donors who'd left money in their will for my project. And I'm, so thankful for that. And, I just wouldn't be here without it. I don't know what I'd be doing, so.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. That is all we have time for today, but I would like to thank Hannah so much for your time and sharing your insights and experience this afternoon. It's really powerful to me to learn more about your project and actually all the opportunities you've had just from that one funded scholarship you have for your PhD. So it's brilliant. And thank you also to our audience for joining us this afternoon. At Cardiff, we are so grateful to everyone who donates, volunteers their time to supporting students or as an alumni ambassador, helps to fundraise as part of Team Cardiff, or leaves a gift in your will. Hopefully you can see the difference you're making to our work and research for people like Hannah and so many others. Diolch yn fawr, thank you.